Well, joining me now to further discuss the ongoing coronavirus relief talks between the White House and Congress and other topics is Kentucky Representative Thomas Massie. Hi, Congressman. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So it's looking increasingly likely that the White House is going to push through its nearly $2 trillion relief package. The GOP consensus seems to be that it's too big. There's a lot of unnecessary items in it because it's not all related to the pandemic. And then there's this recent YouGov poll that shows an overwhelming amount of support among Americans for Biden's stimulus check proposal and some other key aspects of his plan. Do you think working people will be better off or worse off with this proposal?
Well, I think they'd be better off if their Democrat governors would just open up their economies like Ron DeSantis has in Florida. People, they don't want welfare, they want jobs. Yet that's what Biden has promised them. Of course, free money is popular. I say that was the cheese in the trap, the $1,200 checks back in March 27th when the first $2 trillion bill passed. But eventually this will all come home to roost, and somebody's going to have to pay for it. They're basically giving people their own money because somebody's got to pay this money back.
Well, and on the topic of the pandemic, you recently accused the CDC of misleading people when it comes to the efficacy of a vaccine trial on people who have already been infected with COVID-19. I wanted to ask if you could elaborate, and how do you decipher when the organization's purposely misled the public or if it's having to adjust the information it's putting out because of evolving data?
That's a great question. You know, I've already had COVID, so I wondered if I should take the vaccine. And I went to looking at the data, and I found out the CDC had a mistake in the way they were characterizing it. So I called them up. I called the director in Washington, D.C., and she agreed with me, and her top expert agreed with me. They said they would change their characterization of the data. Yet a month later, I found out there were people in Kentucky, the state I represent, who were 75 years old who wanted to get the vaccine but couldn't because you had 30-year-olds following the advice of CDC, which was to go ahead and get the vaccine even if they had already recovered from COVID. I'm not anti-vaccination. I think that we need to distribute these vaccines efficiently to the people who want them, and that's just not happening, and it's because the CDC has mischaracterized the Pfizer trial. Now, they may have some data somewhere else that shows that the vaccine is good for you even if you've already had COVID, but they haven't produced that data, so it's up to them. And in the meantime, they're still misleading people about what the Pfizer and Moderna trials said.
All right. I want to pivot. The president recently signed a slew of executive orders. Many Republicans, if not most, are calling those job killers. Your state is one that employs many people in the oil and gas industry. Now, do you think the new administration is being transparent about the options that workers will really have if their jobs are sacrificed in order to pursue climate agenda?
No, this administration is not being transparent, and they weren't when Biden was not when he was running for office. I think a lot of people are having regret. Look, he's like the arsonist and the firefighter. He's creating a downward pressure on wages by inviting more illegal immigrants into the country. He's killing jobs by canceling pipelines and whatnot, while he's promising a minimum wage of $15 or more and free checks. The problem is he's setting the fires and then saying he's going to put them out. I'm saying don't set the fires. Just let people have jobs, and then you wouldn't have to bail them out.
All right, and then finally, Congressman, House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy is meeting with Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene and Liz Cheney for different reasons, but it's sparked this notion that the party is experiencing a bit of a power struggle between these two different factions. Are you concerned that this is happening?
Well, you know, a lot of people are mad at Liz Cheney for voting for impeachment. What's not being fully reported is people were mad at her already back in March because she funded my primary opponent. She tried to get me kicked out of Congress by sending money to another person to beat me in an election. She shouldn't be doing that as a conference chair. So if there's a vote, I won't be voting for her. Now, with respect to Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Democrats are going down a rat hole I don't think they want to go down. I mean, they had a whole cast of characters If they're going to set the standard that Congress can litigate, your behavior before you were elected, there are a lot of Democrats who are going to fail that standard. I mean, there's a Democrat I serve with here who was one of 8 federal judges who was impeached and convicted by Congress. And then he ran for Congress and he serves in Congress. Are we holding him account for something he did, taking a bribe when he was a judge before he got to Congress? No. I think it's up to the voters to vet their candidates. And once they elect a representative and send them to Congress, the power brokers up here, the fraternity up here, shouldn't try to second-guess those voters and make their representatives second-class representatives.
All right. Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie, thank you so much for your input. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jennifer.